What would you choose, the safety of a heart unbroken or the love that could shatter everything you once believed? Welcome to Happiness of Love, your daily dose of K-dramas. Get ready to fall in love with unforgettable stories. Can you tell us where are you listening from? The grand chandelier overhead sparkled with 1,000 glimmers as Scarlett Lee stood poised at the entrance of the opulent venue, the soft hum of the wedding march enveloping her like a cherished embrace. Just moments away from a future she had always dreamt of, she felt a flicker of unease, a fleeting thought that momentarily stilled her heart. That was when her phone vibrated violently in her hand, interrupting her thoughts with a jarring urgency. Peering at the screen, her heart raced as an anonymous message flickered, "You need to see this." With trembling fingers, she pressed play, oblivious to the fluttering of fancy dresses and sparkling champagne flutes around her. The video unfolded mercilessly, exposing Noah, her once beloved fiancé, entwined with her best friend, Emily. They shared intimate laughter and stolen kisses in a dimly lit hotel room, oblivious to the catastrophe it would soon unleash. The world around her fractured in the blink of an eye. Devastation clamped down on her chest, a vice tightening as she felt the weight of betrayal surge through her veins. As the music continued to play, Scarlett looked up, her heart roaring like a wild beast. The audience, all adorned in their finest, stood frozen in disbelief, whispers cutting through the air like knives. Her breath hitched, and anger surged within her. Noah had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. She could feel the heat of shame flooding her cheeks, igniting a fierce fire deep within. Defiance coursed through her as she declared her truth aloud, her voice slicing through the shocked silence. "This is the man I was supposed to marry." With a swift motion, she turned the screen toward the guests, and gasps erupted like thunderclaps. She felt liberated and trapped all at once, their wide eyes reflecting her own horror. Noah's face fell, pallid and grim as he sat motionless, reduced to nothing more than the cruel architect of his own demise. He reached for her instinctively as if his touch could mend the chasm that now separated them, but all she could feel was the bitterness of betrayal. "Scarlett, wait," he said, desperation clawing at his voice, but she wouldn't let the pain dictate her anymore. The intricate lace of her wedding dress felt heavy against her skin, a suffocating reminder of the doomed dreams it represented. With the night air beckoning and clarity piercing through her sorrow, she took a bold step back and uttered the final words that severed their bond, "Don't you dare follow me." With that proclamation, she turned, weaving through the stunned crowd, her dress swirling like a ghost as she stepped into the cold soul night. The chill kissed her skin, and in that moment of chaotic liberation, she felt alive, an inexplicable rush overshadowing the grief. She cast a furtive glance back, catching sight of Noah's bewildered eyes swimming in a sea of regrets. The distance between them was not just physical, it was a lifetime of trust obliterated. As she ventured deeper into the night, leaving behind a shattered dream, Scarlett couldn't know that her journey into the dark heart of betrayal and conspiracies was only just beginning. Scarlett found herself lost in the suffocating silence of her luxurious apartment, the soft ambient sounds of the city outside a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within her. The glimmer of chandeliers and the sheen of polished marble did little to lift her spirits. Instead, each corner of her home echoed the painful memories of a life she thought was perfect. With every passing hour, the humiliation of her wedding day replayed in her mind like a haunting melody, taunting her with the vivid images of betrayal. Her heart ached as the news of her fiancé Noah's infidelity spread like wildfire across social media. It felt as though the world was watching her unravel, and in the isolation of her solitude, the bitter reality sunk deeper. Noah, despite the chasm of anger and hurt that had formed between them, relentlessly tried to reach her. His messages flooded her phone, a desperate plea for understanding and reconciliation that somehow added to her sense of betrayal. She had loved him fiercely, believed in their shared dreams, yet he had chosen a moment of weakness that shattered everything. As she saw the notifications light up her screen, her resolve hardened, and she blocked every single number associated with him, determined to protect what little dignity she had left. The stark silence that followed was both liberating and isolating, a double-edged sword that cut through her heart. Yet, in the midst of her storm, the doorbell rang, pulling her from the clutches of despair. It was Emily, her former best friend, who stood there, visibly shaken and desperate. Scarlett looked at her, frustration boiling inside. How could she face the woman who had shared her life only to betray her in the most unforgivable way? Emily pleaded for a moment of her time, insisting that things were not as they seemed. With hurt and resentment in her voice, Scarlett responded by saying that the truth was already evident and there was no need for further explanations. The betrayal felt too raw, and all she saw in Emily's eyes was a reflection of her own devastation mingled with a sense of guilt. Emily's desperate attempts to explain fell on deaf ears, as Scarlett clung to her pain more tightly than ever. As the days dragged on, Scarlett's grief morphed into action when she decided to confront the business ramifications of Noah's treachery. In her powerful and confident lawyer persona, she delved deep into the contracts that Noah had persuaded her to sign, and the more she dug, the more unearthed layers of deception revealed themselves. To her horror, she discovered that Noah had entangled her company in a fraudulent deal, placing her hard-earned career at risk. The walls of her thriving life began to close in on her, and she found herself questioning everything. Had anything they built together been real, or all a facade designed to further his ambitions? Each revelation sliced deeper, mixing her professional life with her personal heartbreak. However, just as she teetered on the brink of collapse, a new figure emerged from the shadows of her despair. James Kim, Noah's fierce business rival. His enigmatic presence sent ripples through the air as he extended a lifeline, tempting her with an opportunity for revenge that thrilled her in ways she had not anticipated. James was well aware of the intricacies of her situation, and he offered to help her not only reclaim her company but also to settle the score with Noah. In his deep, commanding voice, he outlined a plan that involved exposing the corruption she had stumbled upon, and with each word, she felt a flicker of strength reignite within her. James was a man who operated in the world of power play and ruthlessness, and even amidst the chaos of her emotions, the idea of taking control, of turning the tables, began to feel intoxicating. Though a part of her remained hesitant, still tethered to the heartbreak that Noah had caused, the ambition and resilience that defined her spirit began to grapple with the throes of betrayal. Unbeknownst to her, as she stood teetering on the precipice of a new alliance, her heart still clung to the remnants of love for the man who had wounded her so deeply. James's offer dangled before her, a promise of revenge wrapped in the guise of ambition, waiting to either bring her justice or pull her further into a web of hypocrisy. With every passing moment of analysis, Scarlett forged a new determination. She would uncover the truth, not only for herself but to reclaim her life from the ashes of betrayal, even if it meant risking everything she thought she knew. Scarlett stood before the mirror, her reflection striking under the soft glow of the vanity lights, the ghost of her wedding day still haunting her. She brushed her fingers through her long dark hair, the weight of the past pressing down on her shoulders. The luxurious gown she had once envisioned wearing to say I do now felt like a shackle, a reminder of betrayal more than of love. Today, she would wear a crimson dress, one that screamed of power and defiance as she aligned herself with the formidable James Kim at the exclusive gala. The air was thick with excitement and anticipation, the venue adorned with sparkling crystals and elegant floral arrangements exclusively chosen for the elite. It was a world where dreams were spun into reality, and amidst the gilded extravagance, Scarlett felt a flicker of empowerment, the first step in reclaiming her life away from Noah. Standing next to James, she felt a spark of something new. His presence, confident and commanding, offered a stark contrast to Noah's cold demeanor, igniting embers of hope within her. She flashed a bright smile, basking in the attention, and though the voices around her buzzed with superficial chatter, there was clarity in her own thoughts. She was here to take control, to carve a path away from her past entanglements. However, lurking in the shadows, Noah watched with a simmering rage. He could hardly stand the sight of Scarlett wrapped in another man, his jealousy seeping into the atmosphere around them. When their eyes met briefly, an unspoken challenge passed between them, igniting the tension that had been brewing since their shattered engagement. Later that night, after the festivities dulled to whispers and clinking glasses, Noah made his move. He cornered Scarlett in a secluded hallway, his voice low but laced with intensity as he demanded to know why she was associating with his enemy. He said that she didn't understand the consequences of her choices, his expression twisting into a mix of fury and desperation. Scarlett's heart raced, but not out of fear. The anger within her fueled a fiery resolve. "You lost the right to ask me anything," she retaliated, her voice sharp and unwavering as she leaned into the confrontation. The echo of their exchange faded into the silence that surrounded them, and facial expressions morphed from heated anger to cold indifference. After dismissing Noah, Scarlett felt victorious, but the exhilarating rush of emotion was short-lived. The night grew darker as she drove home, the moon casting an eerie glow on the dimly lit streets, and a sense of foreboding wrapped around her like a chilling blanket. Just as relief washed over her, a blaring horn cut through the stillness, a terrifying flash of headlights barreling toward her. Panic surged through Scarlett as she swerved violently, feeling the rush of air and the thundering of her heartbeat drown out all else. She missed the impact by mere inches, the speeding car narrowly avoiding her as it sped away, leaving her breathless and trembling in its wake. The crash that could have been echoed in her mind, and when the police arrived, it only escalated her fear. Shaking, she awaited the report, and her worst suspicions were laid bare. The car had been registered under Noah's company. A feeling of betrayal, potent and sharp, pierced through her restored bravado, churning inside her like a tempest. The realization settled heavily on her chest, the blend of shock and confusion forming a dark cloud of doubt over the choices she had made since that wedding day. Was Noah sending a message, or was this simply a terrible coincidence cloaked in conspiratorial dread? As she stood there, surrounded by flashing lights and questions that demanded answers, Scarlett felt the tight grip of her former life tightening around her once more, leaving her vulnerable and questioning everything she thought she had fought to escape. Scarlett stormed into Noah's office, the air thick with the tension simmering between them. The plush, modern space felt suffocating, adorned with sleek lines and minimal decor, designed to impress, yet all Scarlett could focus on was the man sitting behind the imposing glass table. He looked up at her approach, his icy demeanor almost tangible, and for a fleeting moment, something flickered in his cold expression, a trace of regret perhaps, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She demanded an explanation, frustration boiling beneath the surface, her heart racing as thoughts of betrayal flooded her mind. He simply maintained his silence, arms crossed defensively, a chiseled fortress of indifference. Scarlett's anger surged, and she couldn't suppress the desire to confront him about the night that had shattered her life. "How could you do this to me?" she demanded fiercely, her voice trembling with a mix of rage and heartbreak. Yet all she received in return was his unyielding gaze, a battle of wills that made the atmosphere crackle with unresolved emotions. Just as she prepared to press him further, a sudden knock at her apartment door unraveled her thoughts. That evening, Emily appeared on Scarlett's doorstep, her face pale and distraught, a stark contrast to the vibrant best friend Scarlett once knew. The moment Scarlett saw the trembling of Emily's lips, she felt a wave of unease wash over her. "Scarlett, you don't understand," Emily whispered urgently, her voice low as if the walls might eavesdrop on their secret. Panic clung to her words as she stepped inside with a hesitance that indicated something more profound loomed behind her visit. Scarlett felt the weight of dread settle in her chest as she locked the door behind Emily. "You're in danger." "We both are," Emily said, her eyes wide and frantic, filled with a desperation that pulled at Scarlett's heart even as her betrayal loomed over their friendship like a dissonant note. Emily was not the only one who had suffered. Torn between guilt and fear, she offered a cryptic explanation that left Scarlett grappling for clarity. As Emily recounted what she had learned about Noah, details of a dangerous underworld painted a grim picture. "He was forced into it," Emily revealed, her voice trembling. "There's so much you don't know, and you need to see the truth behind what happened." Scarlett's breaths became shallow as her world unpredictably shifted once again, the lines being redrawn between loyalty and love. Suddenly, everything felt more complex, tangled in layers of deception that blurred the boundaries she thought she had established. The night felt especially heavy, drawing shadows that seemed alive as she processed Emily's revelation, her thoughts racing in parallel with her heartbeat. Just as doubt mingled with curiosity, a loud crash echoed from outside, and Scarlett turned to see James and Noah in a fierce confrontation, their voices rising, both men vying for her attention, each with intentions veiled in ambition and protectiveness. "You need to stay away from her," James growled, fists clenched at his sides, while Noah's demeanor transformed, his jaw tightened, a turbulent storm of emotions surfacing, fueled by a mixture of jealousy and desperation. "You don't know what you are getting into," Noah shot back fiercely, the fire in his eyes revealing the conflict that had waged within him since the day of their shattered wedding. Scarlett felt torn, standing at the epicenter of a whirlwind, watching as both men battled for control, each believing they sought her safety while inadvertently pulling her further into their tumultuous clash. Her heart raced as each man hurled accusations, the tension escalating until it became palpable, closing in around her like a vice. In that moment, Scarlett knew she had to make a choice. The illusions that had once cradled their relationships shattered altogether, leaving only raw truths and unspoken fears floating in the charged air. As she stepped forward, she sensed the urgency of the situation. She would no longer be a mere spectator to the storm that had engulfed her life. With steely resolve, Scarlett prepared to confront the reality that she could no longer escape. The shadows of love, betrayal, and the unknown intertwined, demanding clarity amidst chaos. Determined to uncover the truth behind the shattering betrayal, Scarlett found herself engulfed in a relentless pursuit of answers that chased away any remnants of her previous life. Her fingers danced across the keyboard fervently, the glow from her computer screen illuminating her determined expression as she delved into Noah's financial records. As she sifted through seemingly endless spreadsheets and obscure line items, a knot twisted in her stomach when her eyes fell upon entries that raised alarm bells, large transactions tied to a name that sent shivers down her spine, Philip Kong. The notorious crime boss had a reputation that preceded him, and the dots connecting Noah to such a treacherous figure painted an ominous picture. Each keystroke felt heavier as she began to see the true extent of Noah's deception. Heart racing, she whispered a silent prayer that this was merely a coincidence, yet the cold reality gripped her heart tighter with every piece of evidence that unveiled itself. In her mind, a whirlwind of confusion erupted as she replayed moments shared with Noah, moments filled with promises and laughter that now seemed tainted. Was the man she loved truly involved in illegal activities, or was he a pawn entangled in a game crafted by someone far more sinister? She felt as though she were drowning, and just when she thought the weight of the truth might consume her, a voice broke through the chaos. Emily had shown up at her doorstep, clearly shaken, desperation etched into her features. Scarlett's eyes hardened as memories of betrayal swept through her, but she realized that confronting Emily was essential. Emily stepped cautiously into the living room, her voice a trembling whisper as she began to explain, her fear palpable in the thick air. "Scarlett, you're in danger," she said that, her eyes wide with urgency. "And so is Noah." Scarlett's heart took a leap as she felt an unsettling mixture of apprehension and relief at the notion that perhaps Emily was finally going to explain everything that had happened, and yet, even as she clung to a thread of hope, terror lurked beneath the surface at the implications of that statement. The truth, scarred with deceit, lay heavy and oppressive as Emily explained that Noah's betrayal was motivated by an instinct to shield her from something far more dangerous than mere infidelity. Philip Kong threatened him, "Scarlett," Emily confessed, her voice cracking under the gravity of her admission. Each word felt like a jagged knife, cutting through the layer of trust that remained between them. The panic-consuming Scarlett morphed into a complex cocktail of disbelief, anger, and, bewilderingly, empathy. Noah, a man she believed had shattered her world, might have acted out of a desperate need to protect her, yet the very thought of being used as a pawn in a dangerous game left her breathless. Her heart raced with anguish as her mind swirled with images of Noah, a man who had, for so long, represented stability slipping away into a nightmarish labyrinth. Before she could fully process Emily's confession, an unsettling fear gripped her as she became aware of Noah's sudden disappearance. Where was he? Why hadn't he reached out to her? The unanswered questions clawed at her, a bubbling anxiety that surged through her veins like ice. The clock seemed to mock her as the minutes dragged on, and a deep sense of urgency compelled her to take action. Fueled by a fervor she didn't know she still possessed, she started gathering her belongings, preparing to confront Noah directly and demand the answers she so desperately sought. Standing in her dimly lit apartment, impatience swirled within Scarlett as she weighed her options. Would she find Noah, or was he already lost to a world steeped in darkness? The lines between love and betrayal blurred with every fleeting thought as she took a deep breath, determined to unravel the threads of this web that entrapped them both. Scarlett's heart raced as she paced her apartment, each tick of the clock echoing her growing anxiety. Days had passed since Noah disappeared, and every passing moment deepened her despair. Despite her fierce resolve to ignore Noah's presence, she felt a void in her chest that echoed with memories of laughter shared and promises exchanged. James, her newfound ally, approached her with a calm demeanor, proposing that they leave everything behind for a while, suggesting they could escape the chaos together. But Scarlett shook her head, stubbornness igniting within her. She could not run away, she needed to find Noah, to confront him, and to understand the tangled web of lies that had ensnared them both. Just as her determination began to waver, her phone buzzed with a message that made her blood run cold. A single address, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Guided by desperation, she hurriedly made her way there, every step heavy with fear. The air outside was thick and oppressive, filled with an unsettling stillness that made her skin prickle with apprehension. As she pushed the creaking door open, the sight before her nearly brought her to her knees. Noah, bound and bloodied, surrounded by menacing figures towering over him, their fists raised and their faces twisted in cruel delight. She gasped, tears stinging her eyes as the reality of the situation set in. The man she loved was in dire danger, and she had been powerless to stop it. Scarlett stepped forward, the instinct to protect igniting within her. She couldn't let them hurt him anymore. Ignoring the clamoring doubts in her mind, she raised her voice and called out to the men, her tone steady despite the tremor in her heart. She demanded that they stop, her breath catching as they turned to face her with surprise mixed with amusement. In that moment, every ounce of her strength was directed toward negotiations with Philip, whose presence loomed like a shadow, threatening to engulf everything she cherished. "Let him go," she insisted boldly, her voice resonating in the hollow space. "I'll expose your operations if you free him. You have my word." Philip, intrigued by her fierce determination, lifted an eyebrow, eyeing her as if she were a calculated risk about to pay off. He paused, weighing her offer against the stark reality of the situation. The men surrounding Noah relaxed their grip slightly, glancing uncertainly at their leader. "You think you understand the game, don't you?" Philip replied, his smirk revealing the predator lurking beneath. "But you're in over your head, Scarlett. He belongs to me now." Scarlett swallowed hard, every nerve in her body urging her to flee, yet she stood her ground, unwilling to back down in the face of danger. She thought of Noah, vulnerable and helpless, his spirit entwined with hers in ways she could hardly comprehend. Closing her eyes for a brief moment, she allowed the memories of their laughter, their love, and their dreams to envelop her. With renewed resolve, she declared that everyone deserved a chance, even Noah, and she wouldn't let him suffer because of the twisted games that threatened to tear them apart. The tension in the room escalated, but there was a flicker of hope igniting amidst the darkness. In that charged atmosphere, Scarlett's heart pounded loudly, caught between the desire to rescue Noah and the web of danger surrounding them. Scarlett stood in the dimly lit warehouse, her heart racing as she faced Philip Kong, the notorious crime lord whose presence radiated danger. The tension hung heavily in the air as he considered her words, his dark eyes glinting with intrigue. The moment felt surreal, the smell of impending rain wafted in through the cracked windows, a fitting backdrop to the storm of emotion swirling within her. Philip leaned back against a rusty beam, a calculating smile creeping onto his face as he decided to grant her request. "You're bold, Scarlett," he said, his tone dripping with condescension, "but remember, Noah's ties to my operations can never be severed easily." With a nod to the men surrounding them, he gestured toward Noah, sprawled on the ground, battered but alive. Relief surged through Scarlett, igniting a flicker of hope amidst her despair. As the men pulled Noah to his feet, his body swayed, and she rushed to support him, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the warm fabric of his shirt. He winced, his face pale and bruised, but when his eyes met hers, a dull light sparked within them. "Scarlett," he murmured, breath rasping as if he had fought against more than just physical threats. "You shouldn't have done this." But her heart raced for him, every ounce of anger she had felt toward him fading in the face of his suffering. She replied with quiet determination, "I couldn't let them take you from me." With careful movements, she helped him navigate through the confusion of pain and betrayal that loomed around them. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, years of trust shattered, yet here they were, entangled again in this web of fate. She looked into his eyes, searching for the man she once knew, finding him buried beneath layers of scars and choices made for her sake. In the emergency room, as Noah was stabilized, he finally found the strength to speak the truth that had haunted him. "I never wanted to hurt you, Scarlett," he insisted, voice strained but resolute. "Philip used you, he threatened your life. I had no choice." Each word dripped with desperation, and the weight of his confession sank into her like lead. She had always believed in love as an unfailing bond, and now, confronted with the complications of betrayal, her heart twisted painfully. Could it be true? As the reality of his sacrifices washed over her, the tears she had held back cascaded down her cheeks. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper, the air between them vibrating with unresolved tension. Painful silence filled the room, their eyes locking in a battle of vulnerability and distrust. "Because I wanted to keep you safe," he admitted, his gaze falling to the floor, harrowing guilt etched on his features. The revelations weighed on her like chains, and in that breathless moment, she understood the depths of his love, that he had committed the ultimate betrayal to shield her from something far more dangerous. Overwhelmed by the surge of emotions, she felt the pain of losing trust meld with an undeniable longing. Their shared fear and the bittersweet taste of unresolved passion ignited a spark inside her. In that hospital room, adorned with harsh fluorescent lights and the sterile scent of antiseptic, Scarlett felt her lips curve into a gentle smile, even as tears clouded her vision. Noah needed her, she needed him, and perhaps love was not as simple as she once believed. As she leaned closer, her heart raced, urging her on. With his eyes locked onto her, Noah's gaze softened. In that fragile moment, both were stripped of defenses, revealing raw, vulnerable souls bound by a shared plight. Their faces drew closer, longing and regret colliding. She surrendered to the yearning, and as their lips met, the world around them fell away, the noise of the hospital dulled, the chaos outside became irrelevant. This kiss was not just one of reunion, it was a merging of their pain, vulnerability, and a wish for absolution, a declaration that despite the shadows looming over them, love could still prevail. In that fleeting embrace, Scarlett whispered into the depths of his heart, letting her love unfurl like a flower cautiously breaking through winter's grasp. As they pulled away, panting slightly and taking in the gravity of their connection, both knew the path ahead would be fraught with trials and the weight of their past. Yet, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, they were united in their yearning to fight against the storm that had threatened to tear them apart together. They would face whatever lay ahead, not as foes but as passionate allies bound by a love that had endured the worst. Scarlett stood at her desk, piles of documents scattered around her like the remnants of a battlefield. Each paper represented a different thread of Philip Kang's web: money laundering, bribery, docs of false contracts. It was all there, incriminating evidence that could bring a powerful man to his knees. As she typed furiously on her laptop, the stakes felt impossibly high, and with every passing hour, the reality of what she was doing settled like a heavy weight on her chest. She was no longer the woman who had walked away from Noah on her wedding day. She was now a woman on a mission, a laser-focused warrior willing to risk everything for justice. Yet in the quiet corners of her heart, the specters of her love for Noah and the tragedy of their shared past loomed large, casting shadows on her determination. When James entered the room, his presence snapped her back into the moment as he brought a stack of documents he had gathered for their investigation. "We're getting closer," he said, the excitement in his voice almost tangible, but Scarlett could see the underlying desperation in his eyes. She nodded, aware that this was their only shot to take down Kong and, more importantly, to reclaim her life. Their plans were woven tightly with danger, and Scarlett felt the thrill of risk seep into her veins like a potent drug. But she would not let fear take hold. Fear had tried to drown her before, and this time she wouldn't go under. Meanwhile, across town, Noah felt a different kind of turmoil stirring within him. He lay back on the couch in his penthouse, the bandages on his arms a constant reminder of the recent brutality at the hands of Philip Kang's men. He was still recovering, yet a fire burned inside him, igniting his resolve. The time had come to confront Kong directly, to make a choice that could shatter everything he had worked for but could also solidify Scarlett's safety. After deep reflection, he picked up his phone and sent a single, terse message to Kong, arranging a late-night meeting at an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place cloaked in darkness and surrounded by whispered fears. Inside the warehouse, the air was thick with tension, and the flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows against the walls. Philip was already waiting, his expression inscrutable as Noah approached. "You're treading in dangerous waters," Philip said coolly, his voice filled with mockery. Noah clenched his fists, anger surging as he replied with steely determination, "I won't let you hurt her anymore. I'm making a deal." Philip raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet cautious, knowing Noah's need to protect Scarlett had already cost him dearly. "What kind of deal?" he asked, leaning forward with a predatory gleam in his eye. Noah took a deep breath, every word measured as he outlined how he would take the blame for the crimes Philip had orchestrated, using his influence to cover for the syndicate's operations in exchange for a guarantee that Scarlett would remain unharmed and safe from the fallout. He understood the deep implications of his choice, but the faces of Scarlett and their fleeting moments together played in his mind like an endless loop, urging him to make this sacrifice for her. He would bear any burden. Back in the comfort of her well-furnished office, Scarlett was oblivious to the poignant scene unfolding between Noah and Kong, her thoughts consumed with the evidence she needed to present and the impending confrontation with the crime lord. She and James meticulously went through the material, marking connections and planning their next steps, the atmosphere electric with ambition and urgency. "We have to act tonight," Scarlett declared with fervor, her determination contagious. James nodded, his own excitement palpable as he leaned closer to her, intent on her plans. But in that moment, a sudden twist of fate would alter everything once again. As they gathered the final documents, Scarlett's phone buzzed, shattering the intense focus of the moment. Confused, she glanced at the screen, revealing a cryptic message from an unknown number: "Where there's darkness, light can be extinguished. Don't trust Noah." The warning sent a chill down her spine as she grappled with doubts that flickered to life in the back of her mind. The mere thought of Noah's dishonesty cast a veil of uncertainty over her willingness to trust him again, even as her heart ached for the truth. Now, with her heart battling her mind and loyalties wavering, Scarlett stood on the precipice of decision, the choices set before her transforming into a war not just against Philip Kong, but against everything she thought she knew about love, betrayal, and sacrifice. Philip Kong, cornered and desperate, sensed the shifting balance of power and knew Scarlett had become a formidable adversary. As shadows fell over the city, he ordered an attack, intending to eliminate her before she could disrupt his carefully constructed empire. The night was thick with tension, the air electric with the promise of violence as he dispatched his men to silence her once and for all. Scarlett had just stepped out of a meeting where she had laid the groundwork for dismantling his operations when the world seemed to blur in a haze of chaos. In that heartbeat of revelation, as if the universe had conspired against her, the assailants emerged from the darkness with a lethal intent. Scarlett's instinct screamed for her to run, but before she could move, Noah appeared like a flash of lightning, his eyes fierce and filled with a primal need to protect. He hurled himself between her and imminent danger, each muscle straining as he took the bullet meant for her, the sound of gunfire cutting through the night like a cruel whisper. Scarlett watched in horror, her heart dropping into an abyss as Noah staggered, his figure twisting in agony before collapsing into her arms, warmth spilling from his body as crimson pooled beneath them, the reality of his injury crashing down harder than any wave. "Noah, no," she cried, panic gripping her throat as the world around her spun in dizzying circles of disbelief. He looked at her, eyes shimmering with pain but also an enduring strength as he strained to hold on to consciousness, his voice a mere thread of sound amid the chaos. "Scarlett, I'm here," he murmured, attempting to comfort her even as the life force drained from him. The sirens wailed distantly, a haunting melody of urgency that seemed to echo the frantic beat of her heart, desperate and unyielding. She held him tightly, feeling the warmth slipping from his body and trying to make sense of the horror unfolding in front of her. In the background, the roaring of engines and shouts of men filled the air as James's team arrived, their presence cutting through the fog of despair. They lunged at Philip, but he was already a glimpse of darkness retreating into the shadows, evading capture for now. With the fight drawn out of her, Scarlett cradled Noah's head in her lap, the exertion of their struggles a distant memory compared to this brutal reality. "Stay with me," she begged, her voice breaking under the weight of her fear as she brushed her fingers tenderly over his cheek, feeling the warmth of his skin against the chill of the night. Noah's eyes fluttered, desperate yet filled with a fragile bravado. "You're safe now," he said with a feeble smile, his breath uneven, each word seemingly a struggle as he fought to pull her close to him, to instill some semblance of hope within the storm swirling around them. "I always wanted to keep you safe." But shadows flickered where light used to dance in his eyes, and Scarlett could see the flicker of life within him beginning to dim. "Please, Noah," she urged, tears spilling onto her cheeks, blurring her vision as she touched her forehead to his, feeling every heartbeat resonate through her. The world was loud, but her heart felt an aching silence, a desperate prayer woven into the fabric of the night. The sirens grew closer, blurring the edges of their reality, and she felt time stretch and twist, encapsulating this fleeting moment into an eternity as the universe began to crack around them. The rhythms of life hung in the balance, suspended on the precipice between despair and the flicker of revival. As the paramedics finally arrived, their frantic energy was like a thunderstorm crashing into her fragile serenity, and they rushed to Noah, but she held him tighter, whispering words of love that spilled out in an unscripted tide. "You can't leave me, not now, not when we finally have answers," she pressed, her voice shaking with urgency, wishing to transfer her strength to him, pleading with the universe to rewrite their story. But even as the paramedics began their work, instructing her to step back, she felt the warmth of Noah slipping away like grains of sand through her fingers. "Scarlett," he rasped, the weight of his confession hanging in the air between them like a lifeline, the final tether connected to their love. "If I had another life? I'd love you better," he whispered, the poignant sorrow etched in his voice carving deep into her soul, the sentence carrying the weight of everything they could have been and the raw truth of what they had lost. And as his breath began to fade, his eyes closing softly, she felt a sharp pain of realization she had not only lost her love, she was also losing the man who had shaped her world, the man whose actions, however flawed, had always stemmed from a desire to save her from something far worse than she could ever understand. Noah slipped away as the night wrapped around them, cloaking her despair in darkness while sirens howled in a mournful lament, leaving Scarlett forever changed, caught in the bittersweet pain of love and loss that promised to linger like the chill in the air long after the storm had passed. Scarlett stands before Noah's grave, her heart heavy yet ignited with a new resolve. The gravestone is adorned with roses that she placed there, their delicate petals contrasting the weight of her sorrow. In her mind, memories clash like stormy waves, joyous laughter, whispered promises, and the haunting weight of betrayal. As she turns to leave, the soft wind brushes against her cheek, almost as if Noah himself is whispering that it's okay, that she should move forward. Yet, just as she reaches the path leading away from the cemetery, her phone buzzes insistently in her pocket. The sound is jarring against the stillness around her, pulling her from her thoughts. She glances at the screen, her breath catching in her throat. It's an unmarked number, a suspicious call she hesitates to answer, but curiosity and a whisper of hope compel her to pick up. A cryptic voice on the other end murmurs urgent words, hinting at the deeper conspiracies still swirling in the shadows. "Scarlett, there's something you need to know about Noah," it says, a chilling urgency lacing the voice. No longer just haunted by the past, Scarlett suddenly feels a spark igniting within her, the need for justice, the unresolved question swirling like a dark thundercloud. What if Noah's betrayal was just the tip of an iceberg that she could penetrate? With determination, she steps away from the grave, her heart heavy but resolute, knowing that the web of lies surrounding Noah and the dangerous game that was never truly over beckons her back into a world she thought she had escaped. The camera pans out, revealing her silhouette against the setting sun, a woman transformed, fists clenched at her sides as if ready to face any battle that lies ahead. A new path stretches before her, fraught with danger yet filled with possibilities, leaving the audience to ponder what secrets the next chapter holds and who will rise and who will fall in this rebellion fueled by love and vengeance. Will Scarlett embrace the chaos, or will the shadows of her past pull her back into darkness? The screen fades to black, but not before leaving a lingering sense that the story is far from over, the threads of fate intertwining once again, with untold adventures waiting to unfold. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to Happiness of Love. That way, you won't miss any of our heartfelt romances. See you in the next love story.